What is going on? I am back from California, but I'm actually in Colorado and I burnt my face. So this is me in all my glory. And it's been a wild ride. I have so many properties that I cannot seem to do all at once. But we're going to talk about a little bit maybe about the property, some not like the properties, but kind of the wholesale process on like exactly how to break down the wholesale process of everything. And if you have any questions, please drop it down below. But right now, I think my strategy going into the end of the year is really wholesaling them and to make some quick money. There's a lot of like, we don't know what's going to happen with the market. We don't know where the market's going. I've been talking to every single person out there. So many investors, and like you have one side of the investors that are like, hey, we want to get rid of all of our properties right now. And then you have the other side, like a feeding frenzy, and they can't buy enough properties. So it's just a weird time to be alive. But I want to go through today some wholesaling stuff. I know everybody talks about wholesaling on the internet, but there is a right way to do wholesaling and there is a wrong way to do wholesaling. And a lot of people do wholesaling because they're just getting started and they're brand new. Here's one thing that I hope that all of you guys do not do is that you call yourselves a wholesaler. Okay, you guys are real estate investors. You guys are so many more things than just a wholesaler. So if someone came up to me and was like, hey, I'm a wholesaler, in my mind, you're entry level position and you have no idea what you're doing. And that is okay to start in that position, but doesn't mean that you need to stay in that position. So I really believe in wholesaling is a art form. I think it's good for certain situations. I don't believe that wholesaling is good for all situations. You should be able to want to go to the next level, and the next level is fix and flip. But you could go from wholesaling into buy and holds or create a finance strategy. So there's not just one particular strategy. There's so much more. And I hope you guys don't just get stuck on wholesaling. Wholesaling is just something to start out with. It's a stepping stone for a lot of people, but I see so many people just get stuck in wholesaling. So the goal for my channel is for you guys to have passive income, to build wealth for your family. It's not necessarily just about buying and selling properties and flipping them, because if you figure out how to hold on to properties, you will be a lot more successful. So, but we all have to start somewhere. And a lot of people are just afraid to start. And so I am here because I want to help you guys understand what wholesaling is, the pros and cons, the pitfalls, everything in between. I'm doing a 2-day. So today and then tomorrow, Thursday at 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. I'm currently in Colorado, so it's 7 o'clock here. But I really want to go through the day-to-day stuff, the like actual nitty-gritty stuff. Today's going to be a little bit surface level because it's going to be figuring out exactly what wholesaling is and how to protect yourself, the pros and cons, pulling a buyer's list, pulling a motivated seller list, how to run the numbers. I don't think we're going to get to running the numbers today. This is just going to be really a brief, maybe a little bit, I wouldn't say brief, maybe a little bit more in-depth overview of what exactly wholesaling is, because I think people buy $1,000 course and in the course, there's really nothing that is like really amazing in the course. It's just like what you can find on the internet. And you buy a course and then you really don't have any accountability to it. So my thing is I want to build where there is accountability, and I want to build this community of real estate investors. And I have something called Circle where you guys can join Circle and you guys can start talking to each other and hold each other accountable. And maybe one person has buyers, one person has sellers, and you guys can come together and really join the community. So if you guys want to do that, there is a link in my bio for that. Link in bio, that's Instagram. I'm sorry. There is a link in the description that is more so YouTube. And please do the YouTube things, which is clicking the like button and also subscribing so you can make sure you do not miss anything. So let's get started here. So what exactly is wholesaling? Wholesaling is where you get a property under contract, right, with the seller, and then you're basically pushing the paper, is what I like to call it, is basically you have an executed contract from the seller, and we'll go through what is considered an executed contract. And then in the middle of title escrow, you flip it to a buyer, and there's actually somebody else on the other end. And typically this does not require you to really, there's no risk. I mean, it's a very minimal risk. Here's the risk. The risk is that you do not find a buyer and you're in the middle of title escrow and the days are counting down, and you told the seller that you were going to give 30 days and you were going to either find a buyer or you yourself were going to purchase it. So I would say the biggest pitfall in this whole thing, and I'm giving it to you right up front. Look, you don't even have to wait until the end of the video. It's crazy. But there's going to be so much more juicier stuff, so you definitely want to stick around. But so the wholesaling is you have it under contract under market value. What does under market value mean? Meaning that if I want to go buy something, for instance, like a used car, and I want to flip it, I'm looking for that under market value used car. So say Kelly Blue Book says it's $5,000, but I can pay, the seller is willing to sell it to me for $3,000. Maybe there's a couple things that is wrong with it. So I buy it for $3,000. I put maybe $500 into it, and I can flip it for $5,000, and I can make about $1,500 on that transaction, right? So that's really what wholesaling is. Wholesaling is where you find a property under market value, and then you go and you have the paper that says you are in control of the transaction. I'm sorry, guys, if my internet is bad. My brother's internet here is really bad, potentially, I think. If it's glitching, I apologize. But I have a property under contract. I control it, meaning that I have the executed contract from the seller saying that I have the right to buy it, right? So then I can actually go and then flip it to the end buyer. Usually, typically, I like to tell them I don't like to hold things back a lot of the time. I always say in the initial time, like the initial meeting or the second meeting, like once I build a little bit rapport with the seller, I like to say that, hey, if I don't want this deal, maybe I know somebody who does. Okay. So it's very simple. You don't have to be dramatic about it. I think it's super simple to be able to be like, okay, I have an executed contract. Hey, if I don't want it, I'm an investor. I'm going to look at the deal. I'm going to see whether or not I can put all the pieces together. And if I can't, then I'm going to flip it to somebody else. And there's a lot of the time, there's a couple stories, right? The first story is that you can have a seller that gets cold feet, or maybe they get another offer on the table that is higher than yours and they want to back out. What happens in that scenario? Well, they can't. Legally, they cannot. But there are so many different ways where the seller tries to get around it and they try to back out because they got a better offer, right? Somebody went either around you or they just found him and they cold called, maybe like you as well. And they went and they said, hey, I'm not flipping it. I'm just going to buy it for myself. And maybe they can pay a higher price. So there is a lot of the time where you can get yourself in a situation where maybe the seller wants to back out of the deal. That's happened. I don't think it's happened to me. I can't remember. I know I've done at least 3 or 4 wholesale transactions. I don't think it's happened to me, but I could be wrong. I don't remember off the top of my head. Um, I've had it where somebody buys a property for 120. I had a duplex in Sacramento. I hate telling this story because I wish I owned it to this day, but I don't. I have not. I don't. This lady's friend passed away, and she was the executor to the state, meaning that she was in control of the trust and what would happen with the trust. So she then is trying to find somebody, but she doesn't want to put it on the market. She doesn't want to deal with the headache. She just wants to be done with it. And she's like, hey, I'll sell it to you for a good price, which was $120,000 with 2 tenants that were paying $1,600 total. Guys, please tell me the reason why I decided to flip that property to a fix and flipper that bought it for 135, and I didn't even get paid 15,000. Because here's the thing, $15,000 in my commission, my wholesale fee, I had to split that with 2 people. So I ended up making $5,000. And guess what? The guy who bought it flipped it. He literally put paint and a picket fence in the front. He didn't do anything to the inside, and he put it on the market for 199. Guess how much that duplex is worth to this day? It's worth $400,000 in a good part of Sacramento. Let me tell you guys, here's the thing why I don't want you guys to get stuck on wholesaling is because those types of deals will slip through the cracks, and then you'll be like, oh my God, I cannot believe that I just did that. Why did I not learn just a little bit more? Maybe learned about creative financing, maybe learned about subject to properties. And I'm pretty sure that lady would have carried the note for me. I'm pretty sure I could have gotten her to seller finance it, and I could pay her the payments, and then the rent coming in would pay for the payments, right? So there's so many different ways to skin the cat, but I didn't ask those questions back in the day because I wasn't smart enough to. All right. I've become a little bit more wiser in my 7 years of doing this business, but I know a lot of people say that I'm smart. I've been through a lot. I've had a lot of experiences in real estate. I think every single scenario that you could possibly do, I've been through for the most part. So that's the reason why I'm not saying I'm opposed to wholesaling. I just don't want you guys to get stuck in this position of wholesaling. That's all. So hopefully that explained exactly what wholesaling is. You're taking a piece of paper and you're flipping the paper to somebody else. All right. And you're taking your fee. Now that fee could be $500. That fee could be $100,000. That fee can be $500,000. And typically the bigger the property, the better. So like if you're flipping a multifamily, a commercial property, and you get it under contract off market for a decent price, and you can flip it to the end buyer, make a fee, typically those like commercial deals do very well. I've seen people make $50,000 on a single family property, right? So there are still deals out there. You just have to really dig for them. All right. Is wholesaling illegal? Now, this might surprise you guys a little bit, but yes and no, that's the answer. It is frowned upon in some states. I live in Texas, and it is not frowned upon in Texas. But certain states like Illinois, it is frowned upon. You have to be licensed to be able to conduct the transaction. I don't know if that's legal terminology, but I just know that's kind of how the terminology works. So in hindsight, can anybody do wholesaling? You really need to make sure that you check the rules and regulations, and it could vary by state. I don't think it's county. I think it's just state. So making sure that it is legal where you guys are. Now, what is the alternative to wholesaling is just becoming an agent. They want you to be licensed. They want you to be able to use the forms that is written by the attorneys that are state provided by the state. So they want you to be licensed so you don't take advantage of the seller and you don't take advantage of the buyer, because when you go through your licensing process, you have to have ethics and morals, and if you don't, you will get kicked out of the being a licensed agent. A lot of people don't realize that you could take advantage of people because a lot of people don't know what they don't know, and they're just trying to protect the consumer at the end of the day. That's really what their main focus is. So is it illegal? It is in some states. You have to make sure you check. And is it becoming more illegal? Yes. Why is that? It's because you have people on the internet that think that wholesaling is easy and they ruin it for the rest of us. All right. There are a lot of people like that. There are a lot of people out there that think that they know wholesaling and they get themselves into some hot water and somebody complains, and I'm sure you guys know what happens after that. It is not very fun to be on the other side. So what I'm trying to say is that if you're going to do wholesaling, you need to understand the game. You need to understand what you can and can't do. And there is a saying in real estate that says, if you don't know what you don't know, and what you don't know can cost you a lot of money, and it can cost you your reputation, because real estate, all you have is your reputation. You don't really have anything else. I mean, sure, if you make $1 million in real estate, but if you don't have your reputation in real estate, nobody's going to want to work with you. That is super freaking important. I would choose my reputation over $1 million any day, because I can always get another $1 million. I cannot get my reputation back. So that's number one. What is wholesaling? We're going to go through a little bit more. You're going to understand it a little better. Is it illegal? You need to make sure you check with the state to make sure that you can wholesale deals. Some of them, it's frowned upon. You have to have your license. Pros and cons of real estate. Pros and cons of wholesaling. I have a separate slide. What? Why is it doing that? Okay. Separate slide. Ooh, that's a tongue twister. Separate slide. Okay. So pros of wholesaling. It's little to no, it's very little cash. A lot of the time you can get cash. So the only thing that you need let me back up. The only thing you need for wholesaling is this: the earnest money. What in California we call it EMD, earnest money deposit. In Texas, they call it earnest money. What is earnest money? So when you get the property under contract and you email title escrow in about 48 hours to 3 days, so 48 to 72 hours, you need to get something called your earnest money in. And typically, earnest money is 1% of the purchase price. So if your property is under contract for $200,000, the earnest money is 1% of that. So that's $2,000. Now, I will say I have done properties where I put $500 down, and the property is probably like $500,000. So you could put $250 down. It's whatever you and the seller agree upon. It's written into the contract, and before it goes into escrow, everybody has to sign off on it. So if you and the seller agree to $100 of earnest money, that's on you guys. That's whatever you guys decide to do. You have noticed that I do not have a cat in the picture today because my cat is in Texas, but I do have a dog that is annoying at the moment. Okay. So earnest money. Nobody's going to come and check your credit. Why? Because you're not buying anything, right? You are just the middleman. So because you're not buying anything, you don't need a mortgage. You don't need private money, even though some private money lenders don't even check your credit. Most of them don't. You don't need any of that. Now this one, I said no experience, which technically you don't need experience, but what I will say is that what you don't know can cost you a lot of money. It can cost you a relationship. It can cost you a lot of things. So making sure that you understand that there is some knowledge to do wholesaling than just go out and do it. Now, I like for there to always be a mixture, right? I always like to have some type of knowledge, but I don't want to get caught up in just always knowledge. I want to get caught up in knowledge and also action. So there needs to be a little bit of both. I think there's so many people out there that get caught up in just learning, and they get analysis paralysis, and then they decide that they get overwhelmed and then they quit. It's usually a confused mind quits. If you get confused with anything in real estate and it's overwhelming, typically people do not keep going. They quit and they go back to working, and they just don't want to do this business. Minimal risk. You don't have this is probably the least risky investment because you're not buying a property, you're not putting there's no liability. The only liability I will say that you have is this. Is if you don't find a buyer and you have money tied up in escrow and it's not written to the contract that you get the money back after a certain period, you could lose that money. So if it's a $500,000 transaction and you have 500, if it's 1%, you have 5,000 in escrow, you are risking that 5,000. Now, typically I like to get the earnest money from the actual buyer. So I know that money is non-refundable to the actual buyer at the other end. So if I get a seller into escrow, that I have a buyer already ready to go, and that buyer is putting that EMD money in because I'm not risking my own money. Because here's the thing, if that buyer is serious, that buyer will put a non-refundable EMD money. That is very standard in wholesaling. Wholesaling has some standards that they have with it. So you need to collect a non-refundable EMD, earnest money, from the buyer before you put it in escrow. Now, here's another thing where people get tied up. If you put a contract in escrow, I'm sorry, back up. If you sign a contract and you don't put it in escrow for 5 days, that's a violation. Once you have a signed contract, you have to open escrow. You have to. Okay? If you don't have a buyer, that's your fault. So once you sign that contract needs to go straight into title and escrow. And you should already be talking to title escrow to see whether or not they do wholesaling, because some title escrows don't want to take on the liability and the risk of it. And we can get into what double closing is, so the person doesn't see who the end buyer is, but we'll get into that a little bit later on down the line. So that is one thing. So if you decide to go and if you decide to sign it and have an executed contract with the seller, you need to make sure you put it in title escrow. You have to. Even if you don't have a buyer on the other end. You have to, and you have to put up earnest money. Or you're in breach of contract already, and you're now liable for anything that goes wrong. Isn't it? So I love real estate, guys, don't get me wrong, but there are some things that you just have to know and understand, because if you don't know it, it can cost you a lot of money. I think a lot of people, they glamorize it, which I think they should, because you can make a lot of money, but you also have to know what you're doing. Because if you don't know what you're doing, it's not good. And here's another thing. If you don't execute that contract for the seller, that's one more person that's not going to come back and say, hey, let me work with her again. Maybe that person has 5 properties. If you don't execute the contract, then, you know, the seller is going to say, hey, that person doesn't know how, that person's not a closer. You want to be known as a closer in this business. You don't want to be known for not closing transactions and just getting them under contract. You don't want to be known for that. I know people who do that. There's home investors. I don't know if you guys have heard of home investors, the we buy ugly houses for cash, and they're all along the billboards. They are known to not close deals. They will lowball you an offer and they won't close the deal. It's very frustrating. So if you ever have somebody's like, yeah, I want to buy that from you, and you have it under contract, just know if you get a home investor, unless you've worked with that person before, it's very rare that they will close a deal. All right. Some cons of wholesaling. Some cons of wholesaling is that the income is not a steady income, right? You always constantly have to be fighting that next deal. It's similar to being a real estate agent, right? You're buying and selling properties. The reason why I like my Airbnbs is because, say that I just don't want to work one day, or I want to go hang out with my family in California, I can, because I have a constant steady flow of income of regardless if I decide I want to work. That's the beauty of it. I'm in Colorado for 2 weeks because a lot of my stuff can be handled virtually. And I have a steady flow of Airbnb income that allows me to kind of be able to maneuver. And I love that. And I have a lot more time freedom. So, but if you do wholesaling and you're relying on that income, right? You really have to work. It's a grind, a lot of it. And not to say it's a bad thing. I think everybody needs that hustle. And I've done that hustle for the last 7 years. And I know what it's like to go, your income to go up and down, up and down, up and down. But you guys have to know that wholesaling, if you get a deal, you always have to be constantly looking for the next deal, unless you buy the property itself. Right? Unless you do some type of creative financing on it, some type of just anything. So until you learn how to buy the property, you're still kind of in a job at the end of the day, right? Your goal is to have I think people say financial freedom, but what I feel like people mean is that they want time freedom. And what does time freedom mean over financial freedom? Is, yeah, you want to have the finances coming in every single month, but here's another thing. I believe that people want to be able to spend more time with their loved ones. I hear it so much across the board. Every single time I go visit my family, every single time I go talk to friends, it's always, I want time freedom. And obviously they want the backing to be able to have time freedom. And I will say that you obviously need to have the financial freedom in order to have the time freedom. But here's another thing where people get caught in business. They work so much in their business that they forget to have an actual life. And I've done that. I've been there. And my goal is to be able to work my normal day and to be able to go off and do some stuff as well. So I have not perfect at it by any means. I definitely have my moments, but I definitely try to have fun, more fun than I did in the first 7 years of doing this business, is that I do want to be able to go and travel and do stuff. So the income is up and down. So you guys have to decide, maybe you do a couple and then you get a lot of cash and you decide that you want to buy a property. Here's where people go wrong. They do one deal at a time. One deal closes, and then now you got to restart your whole entire operation and go out and find another deal. If you don't learn anything from me today, this is the one thing that I want you guys to understand. If you do not have leads in real estate, you do not have a business, all right? You need to have a constant lead and deal flow for you to have some type of business. Once you have leads, you're in business. Simple as that. I know it sounds simple and it sounds like it's easy to do, but it's not. To be able to go and find leads and do it, if it was easy, everybody would do it, right? What did I just do? Okay. So in order to have a business in real estate, you have to generate leads. The name of the game, we're going to either get into that today or probably tomorrow. We will probably get into the lead generation stuff. All right. The cons of wholesaling. The second one is difficulty finding motivated sellers and buyers. I know maybe I can't relate to this right now because I have a amazing cold caller, and he's probably on this call. And shout out to you, Manuel. You are amazing. I thank God for you every single day. He has been crushing it on the phones, let me tell you. And he knows how to talk to people. And a lot of the time, that's half the battle, is to be able to talk to people. And if you don't know how to talk to people, then you need to maybe find somebody who does, because a talker, you don't have to tell them to go talk to people. They just instantly go and they cold call, and it's not a big deal to them. So my biggest thing is that you really need to go find either a cold or link up with an accountability partner. And that's why I start a community in Circle, because you can start to link up with people maybe in where you live, or maybe it's in different cities, but you guys can still keep each other accountable. And that's half the battle. I've always had accountability partners, guys. I even have an accountability partner for my YouTube and my editing and all of that. I have to have it, because if I don't, it's easy to quit on yourself. It's harder to quit on somebody else. So I got on the phone with my editor today, my Instagram editor, who does my Instagram and my YouTube stuff. He's not happy with me. Why? Because I'm not posting consistently. And I already have content in the pipeline, and I'm just not posting it. Okay. That literally, I have all of the content, but I'm not posting the content. And he's like, I'll post it. I know you're busy, so I'll post it. So he's going to post it now and help me out. But I will say, guys, if I don't have help, it's very hard to keep it consistent. Super hard. And especially with cold calling. Cold calling is extremely hard to keep consistent. Here's how you beat 99% of all real estate investors. Here's the secret. You guys ready? The secret to being able to be better than 99% of all real estate investors, it's not that they know more than you. It's not that they have more money than you. It has nothing to do with that. It's because they are consistent. They show up every single day. They do everything. They have all the systems in place, all the automations in place, everything. So how to be consistent? How to be better than 99% of everybody is that you are consistent. And you can pull the same leads as everybody else, but if you are consistent and persistent, I guarantee you, I can't guarantee a lot of things in life, but I guarantee you that you will have properties, okay? And if you don't, you can definitely come and talk to me, because I'm telling you, there's something going on. Like, maybe you just haven't sat down and called people. Like, I hear it all the time. People go, oh, I've been doing this business for 2 years and I don't have a property. I'm like, there is no way in heck you are doing this and sitting down on a daily basis, even just for an hour a day, and doing this business and not have any properties. It's just not, it's not possible. Okay. You didn't do, like, it's not what you say. It's literally about numbers at the end of the day. Numbers. This is a numbers game. If one person says no, you go to the next person. If that person says no, you go to the next person. You just keep it moving. All right. So how to beat everybody else is that you stay consistent. The last one is the legality of wholesaling. Sometimes it can get touchy. Some title companies don't like it. Some title companies do like it. It just really depends on really the title company. It varies from title company. It even sometimes varies from escrow officers, to be honest. It's so weird. Title companies are a different animal, but I used to know an escrow officer that would do subject to properties, and then if you talk to another person in the same escrow office, they wouldn't do it. So it really just depends on the escrow and what they will take. And then also on the other side of that is obviously we talked about, which is whether or not it's legal to wholesale in the state that you live in. All right. So we've been through market area for properties. We did that on finding the groundhog. I will be doing another finding the groundhog challenge at the end of the month, which is, let me pull out my handy dandy calculator, which is the 20th, 21st, 22nd. I will be doing finding the groundhog event. If you guys want me to push it back, I could push it back to the 27th, 28th, and 29th of June. Now, I realize that a lot of people have children and they're out of school, and a lot of people are MIA during the summertime, but we're going to be consistent and we're going to continue to do that every single month, the Finding the Groundhog event. We might change the name, so just keep a lookout for that. All right. So market area, I go to something called census. I'm sure you guys have heard of that. Data census, Bureau of Data, where you can see whether or not it's a growing population. You want to make sure that you're in a growing population. Sorry, hold on. No. What is going on? Oh, I know what I'm doing. Sometimes. Okay. So I search, I don't know, Houston. Houston is booming right now. It's crazy. Oops. I like this thing about mine. So areas that I look for to be able to do any type of real estate is, my criteria is this. Number one is that they have to have over 500,000 people in the actual city itself. Some of you guys are going to be like, well, I have a really up and coming small town and I think that it's going to grow. Okay. That's great. And I'm happy for you. However, you do need to be in something that is growing more, because here's the thing. You're going to run out of stuff and then you're going to get irritated and you're going to quit. With bigger cities, you have more room to mess up and say the wrong things and be able to kind of correct yourself and for it not to go completely sideways on you. So there's a lot of, I didn't know the medium age in Texas is 35.5. So these are the stats for Texas, for Houston specifically. I want to see where we're at in the stats. Are we growing or are we shrinking? Are we going the opposite way? And if you guys ever see like the big guys do this stuff, I'm telling you that the big guys have guys that just analyze data. That's it. All they do is analyze data. There's like a whole department for like the big REITs, the big guys, syndication guys. They all have probably like sometimes 100 people just researching areas on where to find stuff. So yeah. So here's what I like about Houston, and maybe I shouldn't put Houston on blast, but here's what I like about Houston, that the rents are so freaking low still. And there's so much to grow into in Houston, and there's a lot less regulations than anything I've ever seen in California. And I will never buy anything in California for a while. I don't want to say never say never, but it's going to be a while for me to buy anything in California. When there's so much opportunity in Texas and Arizona, there's opportunity in Florida. I like to go to landlord-friendly states. I will not do friendly states anymore because I've learned my lesson. And that is in California. I've learned my lesson in California. I'm not trying to learn lessons. I don't want to continue to learn lessons, guys. Learning lessons is fun, but I want to start making sure that I don't learn the lessons twice. Let's just put it that way. Look at vacant housing units right there. 2,626. So for everybody who's telling me that there's no deals, y'all aren't calling people. There's deals there. They're out there. You just have to call them. And what it is that majority of people are scared to get on the phone. I'm telling you, the people don't bite. I promise you that. They do not bite. 2 or 3 bedrooms. I see a lot of 4 bedrooms in Houston. So look at 2,626 vacant houses. Look at 1 million vacant houses and housing units in Texas. Employment. Here's another thing. So when you look for employment, you're looking for a diverse employment. You're not looking for one company that houses all the other, because if that one company goes out of business, you're screwed. So you're looking for employment that's mixed. Maybe there's Amazon, there's oil and gas, there's people who work in the tech industry. You have people here who work in the NASA. You have people who work, there's so many more positions, right? So there's a lot. Employee of a private company, self-employed, profit, not-for-profit, wage and salary workers, local, state, and federal workers. So people who commute, guys, this is what kills me. If you sit in traffic for 30 minutes a day, why? So when I was 23, 24, I sat in traffic, and I remember I was sitting at a stoplight. This is what made me go all in on my goals. This right here. I was sitting in traffic, looking at the stoplight and saying, how in the right mind do people do this for 20 years? And people commute 30 hours a day. But here's what really got me. Y'all will work for someone else for 8 hours and come home after a long days of work. And yes, you're tired, and I understand that, but you guys will not you guys on the line. You guys are better than that. But a lot of them will go home and they will sit on the couch and they will watch TV instead of taking that time to build your business. I think that's crazy to me. That is crazy town to me. You will spend more time working for someone else than you will working for yourself and growing your business and making sure that you are in control of your financial future. People do it all the time. I don't know if I could. I will work 100 hours for myself than work 1 hour for somebody else. I probably work more than that. I probably would work like 200 hours a week than to having to work for somebody else. I can't do it. I'm not somebody who likes to be told what to do. So that is, you can get your information on the Census Bureau, type in the information. The population needs to be more than 500. And you need to have a little bit of a diversification on the job market. There needs to be good employment. There needs to be high growth. There needs to be a lot of different factors. So don't overlook this. So when you decide that you want a property in North Dakota, you would know that North Dakota is not where you want to be. Why? Because there's not a whole lot out there. All right. So don't waste your time. Your time is very valuable, and you need to be going where the deals are. Now, the flip side of that is some of you guys are going to say, well, there's so much competition. Let me tell you guys something about competition. Competition is healthy, number one. Number two, there is no competition, because here's the thing. what I told you guys before, 99% of the population will not call consistently. So what do you have to be? What do you have to do better than your competition? You have to call more. You have to show up every single day. That's why there's no competition for you. All right? So, most people will fall off. That's just the name of the game. All right, how to find buyers. So when it comes to wholesaling, I typically like to have a list of buyers. So since I've been in Texas, I've kind of just been networking. There's different events that you can go to. There's my contractor. He has a lot of buyers because he's also a real estate agent. There's other wholesalers that have buyers. How do you find them? You just poke around a little bit. There's a lot of different things. There's every single time I talk to somebody, they could be a potential buyer. Oh, now that I think about it, I have a buyer for a property. There's a 12 unit that we're looking at, and I think I have a buyer, Manuel, if you're on the line. I think I have that just like registered. I think I have a buyer. I'm always constantly networking. So like a lot of my Airbnbs, they are multifamily properties. So I can go to them and say, hey, do you want to buy anything? Right? So I think I have a buyer, solid buyer. He's looking for stuff now that I think about it. All right. So we have a lot of multifamily deals, and I have a buyer's list. And I'm shopping for it right now. So I'm shopping around for, I always call it when I go and try to find a buyer for a property, my terminology for it, and I don't know if this is correct or not, I don't really care, but I tell people I'm going shopping for a buyer today, and I basically hit up every single person that is in my phone, because you should be networking with everybody. You should be networking every single time you meet somebody. You should be saying, hey, what are you looking for? What are you doing? Do you buy multifamilies? Like, how do we do business together? What do you currently do? Like, you should be getting to know people, so you put them in a category. Hey, this person's a private money lender. This person's a buyer. This person, they're just flipping properties. This person is wholesaling properties. So there's different categories to put people in, and a lot of people have spreadsheets, which I actually have a call tomorrow with somebody who's about ready to put together a whole everything for me, because it's a little chaotic right now. So it's funny that I'm like on this call talking, and then I'm like putting the pieces together in my own head about certain things as well. So it all happens together. Oh, Manuel, you are online. So yeah, finding a buyer first. It's consistently networking with people. It's finding those RIA meetings. It's finding those community of real estate investors. It's talking to every single person that comes your way. If you are living and breathing. So I used to go business to business selling makeup out of the trunk of my car. And the thing is like, if you are breathing, you will be I'm talking to you. That's the end of the story. Like, if you are breathing, we are having a conversation about something. Yeah, so that's Manuel is texting me. So yeah, so that is finding a buyer first is really important, because you don't want to be stuck with your EMD money in escrow. So there is a way to make sure that the seller doesn't back out, and we're going to go through that stuff tomorrow. So make sure that you guys are on this call tomorrow, because there's something called a memorandum that you should have written into your contracts. And that memorandum is going to save your life, because you could put a lien on the property if the seller tries to back out. So we're going to go through the memorandum tomorrow. We're going to go through how to pull a seller's list because I don't have enough time to pull a seller's list right now. We're going to do how to run the numbers. This is like a little bit more in-depth, nitty-gritty stuff that we will be doing, just not tonight, because I need to actually make sure I have everything. We did talk about the executed contract today, so we did talk about a couple things on day 2. I do want to go through negotiations because negotiations is super important when it comes to this stuff. We recently had a negotiation that kind of went sideways on us. And a lot of it maybe was a misunderstanding or something happened, and I'll tell you that story tomorrow. That story will be there tomorrow. And then we talked about the non-refundable from the buyer, and then I want to talk about the filing of the memorandum. So all of these things, we're going to wrap it up today. It is getting late. So if you haven't already, there is a link in my bio that it's not the link in my description where you can sign up for Circle. It is free and we can start talking to each other on Circle and start building a community. We could talk on a daily basis, which I don't know if you guys want to, or a weekly basis, because the more that you find an accountability partner, the better. I just think that is really that's what you need an accountability partner to keep you accountable. So I believe in accountability partners. I believe in learning. I believe in taking action and understanding exactly what you're getting yourself into. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. I don't typically even say that anymore, but you know, it just helps the algorithm. It helps this channel get seen a little bit better. So I'm going to wrap it up, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your night, and we will continue the wholesaling conversation tomorrow and get into a little bit more nitty-gritty of it. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.